The Baltimore Ravens took best player available. They addressed needs and they added a lot of rookies to their roster in the 2025 NFL draft. We go through full draft grades, both for each individual player and for the draft as a whole for Baltimore, and a lot more coming up next on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here on this Sunday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Free and available for you, all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We are a 5-day-a-week daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. So Monday through Friday, we have you covered with those daily weekday episodes. Plus, we go live after every single Ravens game and every piece of Ravens big news. And we also have bonus episodes like this when the content permits. And certainly, this is one of the busiest weekends of the offseason. Of course, we had an amazing draft weekend here on Locked On Ravens. 3 live shows, multiple bonus episodes, and really glad for everybody who popped in, checked in, and even if you didn't, really glad you're here with us today on Locked On Ravens in video form or in audio form, wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs help to find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. 11 picks the Ravens had coming into this draft, 11 picks the Ravens made, and that is how many the Ravens added to their roster over the course of the past 3 days. We're going to get into that conversation in the final part of the show, but as promised on the live show yesterday, I am going to go through my draft grades. We'll have analysis on each pick. We'll go through that in the first and second segment. I will also analyze the class as a whole, where Baltimore did well, where they did not, how I feel about each player. And then we're going to dive into where the roster stands right now. We'll have undrafted free agency updates as well. So jam-packed bonus episode. And I'll tell you, Ravens started off with a bang here. So let's just dive into it and we'll go through these 11 guys that the Ravens added. I'll bring up the handy-dandy draft graphic that I made so we can get a full picture of the class. I'll bring this up throughout the show in video form if you're with us. In audio form, of course, I will be going through each pick, so you're not missing out on anything. If you're just listening in audio form, don't worry about that. Number 27, Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. To me, this was a top 15 player in the class, at the very worst, a top 20 player in the class. But we saw the run on certain positions early. Defensive line, offensive line. We saw a couple others go as well. Both tight ends went off the board. The top tight ends by the time pick 14 was gone. We saw a corner 2 head off the board. I think Jahdae Barron was the first corner because Will Johnson, he fell a ton. So Malachi Starks becomes the first safety off of the board for Baltimore. And I was a fan of Nicky Manwari over Malachi Starks, but reports started to come out prior to the draft that the Ravens wanted to keep Kyle Hamilton deep, but then there were dueling reports on the Ravens wanting to move him around in the Swiss Army knife role. Malachi Starks has versatility to do either, where I think Nicky Manwari, he was more so if the Ravens wanted to keep Hamilton deep, you would have another Kyle Hamilton-esque player. But Malachi Starks is a safe player, and I keep saying this on the shows, on the live shows, and on the bonus episodes, on the Friday episode we had after night 1. Me saying Malachi Starks is a safe pick does not mean that I think Malachi Starks is a high floor, low ceiling player. The safe pick in Malachi Starks' case, and in Mike Green's case, which we'll get to, is he already has a high floor, but the ceiling also, I think, is superstar high. And that's what the Ravens needed. Starks is an all-around player. He has ball production. He turns his head for the ball. Ball awareness is there. He's good against the run as well. And some of the things that you really like about Malachi Starks is he can fit right in to this positionless defense that Baltimore is employing with Kyle Hamilton, with Marlon Humphrey, moving that secondary all around. And the fact that he both is a good player in run support and against the pass, he doesn't have a ton of weaknesses. He has size, he has length, he has athleticism, And that's something that Baltimore needed, a guy that doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. He's been in big moments, been in big games. He's really been producing since he stepped on the field at Georgia. And he is a leader and is a worker. You know, you hear stories and rave reviews about Malachi Starks in that Georgia locker room and being a leader for his teammates there. That's exactly the type of player that Baltimore wants. He was a red star for Baltimore, which means that he aced everything, all the interviews and whatnot. So they really liked him. And they said he was by far the best player on their board. So he's someone that is a confident player as well. He has the range, and the thing that he has to improve on will sometimes get faked out at times. He could stand to add a bit more strength, but I still think that he is fine in that department. He can allow a big play a time or two as well, but the fact that he's not necessarily uber sticky in coverage, but he has the athletic profile and the intangibles to make up for some of that as well. So he can even play special teams. I think that maybe he'll have a role there, a smaller role on special teams as well. We know that the Ravens value special teams and guys playing there as well. So, I mean, you look at it and Starks has the production, he has the tape, he has the athleticism. He checks almost every single box. He's an elite player. You know, you could have argued positional value. I don't dock for as much positional value points as other people do, because I think if you can play, you can play. Starks can play. And, you know, whether you wanted Baltimore to take an edge at this spot, defensive lineman, corner, offensive lineman, if you were with us for our Thursday night / Friday morning live stream after round one, there were a lot of people that said, you know, this isn't a good pick because Baltimore needs an edge. They need a pass rusher. They need to protect Lamar Jackson. And I said, I get it. I do. I truly understood that train of thought. But I just said, let's wait. Let's see what they do. And let's judge Malachi Starks, the player now. And then once the draft is over, we can go back and examine if it was the right pick positional value-wise. You move on to round two. So my grade for Malachi Starks is an A. So I am doing A pluses. I know some people only do A's. I am doing A pluses. So Malachi Starks to me was an A pick. I know some people had him in the A- B plus B range, but I'm not docking for positional value. I'm docking off his traits and his skill set. He's an A player to me. You go to the second round, Mike Green, edge from Marshall. This is an A plus. Plus, if I might give it plus on field fit, on field value. Obviously, he was at 59 for a reason with the off-field allegations that he was facing. Again, Eric DaCosta and John Harbaugh made it very clear that the Ravens felt comfortable with what they looked into, what they found, what, you know, the conversations with Mike Green and people in Mike Green's circle were. So they decided to be the team. Some teams had him off their board completely. Felt like a lot of teams had him off their board completely. Baltimore was not one of those teams. And I didn't factor in Mike Green in my day two mocks, in my positional, are the Ravens going to take an edge? If so, what edge is that going to be? I didn't have Mike Green in that conversation because, one, I didn't think he'd fall to 59, and two, I didn't know if Baltimore would be the team to actually be the team to take Mike Green, and they were. On the field, Mike Green is dominant as they come. He was the second best pass rusher to me in this class. Abdul Carter was number one. He is a do-it-all player. At 17 sacks at Marshall, someone that has insane production. And look, before he transferred over to Marshall, he played 2023 and 2024 there. He only had 1 sack at Virginia, but he ascended 4.5 sacks his first year at Marshall. And then again, I mentioned the 17 sacks and 23 tackles for loss. He burst onto the scene. He quieted questions about, can he go up against better competition in a game against Ohio State where he dominated and had one of his devastating spin moves. He has a wide array of pass rushing moves that he can use. He has a plan. Sometimes these guys coming out of school they have all the traits, they have all the tools, they have all the moves, but they don't know how to use them effectively. Mike Green, he counters throughout games. He evolves throughout games. You can see that on the tape. He figures things out. His motor is intense. It is insane. Sometimes he runs himself a little bit into overdrive, and that can cause him to tire out a bunch, which I guess is one of his strengths and one of his weaknesses because he goes so hard on every play. But obviously that causes him to tire out at times for long periods of time. But I mean, you can't say enough good things about Mike Green on the field here, where I have never seen, at least, or I guess I've never felt for me a position, and I mentioned this multiple times, I've never felt a position go from a position of not weakness, but question for me to a position of strength. I think Mike Green single-handedly does that. A top three of Mike Green, Kyle Van Noy, and Lafe Owe is incredible. You would then have guys like Tavius Robinson. I'm expecting massive things. Mike Green is the make or break pick in this class. It is what it is. I know Malachi Starks has that as well, but Mike Green, you don't get that value from Mike Green. We're looking at this class a lot differently, in my opinion. So he's a super twitchy athlete. He converts speed to power, and if he adds a little more strength onto his body and onto his build, he's going to be unstoppable. Look, the Browns have Myles Garrett, the Steelers have TJ Watt, the Bengals have Trey Hendrickson, while the Baltimore Ravens now have Mike Green. He's someone that's a stand-up guy, and he can play with his hand in the dirt, but prefers to stand up, it feels like. He is super high activity with the motor. He can bend. He has the speed. He accelerates. He is someone that I feel like, with the twitchiness that he has, will be able to give offensive linemen fits from day one. He's a true 3-down player as well. He is exceptional against the run. This is a guy that checks all the boxes to be a superstar. And look, if the off-field stuff, the Ravens feel confident enough with it, that was the reason they made the pick. If none of that pops up, and there's no other incident, or the allegations don't come back or whatever, I don't know what that situation looks like. Again, he had 2 separate allegations, one in high school, one in college. If the character checks out, then Mike Green is going to be the biggest deal in the last handful of seasons. So this is an A. Obviously, you can maybe put an asterisk by that, but I'm going A+ for Mike Green. We'll then go to Emory Jones here, round 3, number 91. I gave this one, I was on the fence about this one a little bit in terms of what I was going to go here. I give Emory Jones a B. That doesn't mean I don't like the pick. I've mentioned this. He was on my short list of guys that I wanted. Now, I feel like Baltimore could have traded up for Wyatt Malone. And, that's not an Emory Jones thing. It has nothing to do with Emory Jones. I feel like they could have taken a couple of other guys here. We're going to do a full evaluation coming up. But for Emory Jones, he is physically talented. He has the size, the strength. He's 6'5", 315. He is, 3-year starter at LSU. He has his play strength. Sometimes he can get a little bit out of control, and his technique can bend and waver at times. So I think with coaching from George Warhop, mentoring from Ronnie Stanley, the undisciplined aspects of his game will get better. He's not a guy that's going to be an instant impact player in year 1, in my opinion. I think he'll probably need a year or 2 to fully develop. The Ravens, it would have been nice to have a guy who can maybe kick inside the guard. Baltimore said that they feel like he'll be a swing tackle with also the ability to play guard, and we'll see if there's some competition, and Emory Jones is in that for the guard position. But he has right tackle potential. I know people do project him to be on the inside, and on that LSU line that did feature Will Campbell and another Ravens draft pick we'll get to, he was solid. He was highly touted last year, didn't have quite the best year in 2024, but they did need a tackle. They needed a swing guy. They needed extra offensive line depth. So I'm going to give Emory Jones a B, because I think that, again, there are other players I think that were a little more refined and could have maybe contributed for you on day one, but I think Emory Jones still could potentially be that guy for you, and he brings a lot to the table. So a B is not a bad grade, by the way, but Emory Jones to me is a B. Kind of in the second part of the show, we will go through day 3 individual grades, and we'll also dive into a full draft grade for Baltimore. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. When you can post your job, LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires, and LinkedIn is the place to go for all of your job and hiring needs. So you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Again, Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, breaking down the Ravens 2025 draft class, giving out individual grades, and we will get to a full team Ravens grade at the end of the individual grading. We went through day one. We went through day two. Let's get into day three. Eight picks on day number 3. And it started off for Baltimore at 129 with Teddy Buchanan, the linebacker, out of Cal. Now, I don't mind Teddy Buchanan, the player. Right? Teddy Buchanan, the player, is not a bad player. Now, positional value, again, I don't knock for that as much as other people do. Buchanan is a little bit smaller, but he's very athletic. He can cover as well. And I think that's a skill set in their linebacker room that they want, especially next to Roquan Smith, who we did see struggle with that over the course of, I would probably say the first half of the season. He's a very active player. He was a transfer from UC Davis. He had 114 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 2 interceptions last season. So the production is certainly there for Teddy Buchanan. We have to remember, Baltimore lost 3 inside linebackers this offseason: Chris Board, Malik Harrison, and Kristen Welch. So again, inside linebackers, not this positional value, this elite positional value. The Ravens, they didn't do that here with Teddy Buchanan, but it was still a need for them, and one that I think, much like safety, in my opinion, people were probably underrating just because it's not a edge guy, or it's not a corner or a wide receiver, etc. So I think for him, he's someone that, look, Trenton Simpson in Baltimore, this is my thing with Trenton Simpson. I don't think I don't want to say there's no support for Trenton Simpson in the building, but I feel like it's very iffy on if the team believes in him right now. There have been interesting comments this offseason from members of the organization about him, and I just don't think the confidence is fully there. I would not be shocked if Teddy Buchanan competes for snaps next to Roquan Smith, and they don't need to use 2 inside linebackers on the field at all times. I mean, with Patrick Queen leaving last season, that kind of eliminated that. You can play heavy DB packages, dime packages. That's what Baltimore can do. It's not like it's a necessity to have a guy next to Roquan Smith, but I still think that in certain coverage situations, which Baltimore struggled with, I remember, guys would just line up in the slot and just beat linebackers on Baltimore over and over and over, whether it was Roquan, Malik Harrison, like it was bad. Teddy Buchanan, with his athleticism, certainly can do that. So I think that this was a fine pick for Baltimore. I give it a B-. Again, it's not the craziest pick in the world, but I feel like Baltimore at this spot, there were other guys they could have taken, which again is more of a team thing. But at the end of the day, Buchanan is a player that I think can really help Baltimore in year one, whether it is on special teams or maybe in a somewhat smaller role on the defensive side of the ball. Next up, the Ravens made a trade, which we will talk about a little bit later. I was not a fan of that trade. They traded back 5 spots with the Titans. Number 141, Carson Vincent, offensive tackle from Alabama A&M. He's 6'7", 315 pounds. Really intriguing developmental tackle. This is not a guy that's going to start for you in year one. It's going to take some years to develop him, but he has that intriguing build, the intriguing frame. He started for 5 years at Alabama A&M. So he has experience. He has seen a thing or two playing football. And I think it's a fine spot to take him. I mean, I didn't really mind it. I gave this pick a C+. I'm giving the player a C+. The actual way they got this pick, in my opinion, was an F. So we'll get into that, but I'm not going to dock the player for the way the Ravens handled it. I still like the pick. I just don't like the way that Baltimore handled it to actually get there, because I think Baltimore was getting a little too cute in these middle rounds, which again, we will get to after we go through these individual grades. So I thought that Vincent was fine. I know some people weren't happy with them double dipping at offensive line in essentially 2 out of the 3 picks here with 91, then 141, but I expected them to do this, so I was okay with it. Next, we have Bilal Kone out of Western Michigan, a cornerback. 4.43 speed for him. He's 6'1", 190. I think that people consider him an outside guy at the next level. He has experience in the slot as well. They needed corners. And I think that for Kone, he's also a very fluid player. His hip movement is fluid. His feet, they're fluid as well. The foot speed is very nice for him. He doesn't shy away from contact, in my opinion. There are multiple plays of him, breaking up passes with his physicality. I don't think this is a guy that's going to play for you right away, but I do think is more of a developmental guy. I'm fine with it. You know, it wasn't my favorite pick of the draft, but you know, at this point, it kind of felt like the Ravens weren't really intrigued by any prospects. I would have liked for it to be a defensive lineman, but again, I'm not going to knock the players. So I think that this one was okay for me. Like, I gave it a C. It was like no harm, no foul. It wasn't my favorite pick. Wasn't my least favorite pick. Like, it was a okay type of pick. Next up, Tyler Loop, the kicker from Arizona at 186. This one, to me, I gave a C just because I think there's a shot he does not make the roster, and I'm not a fan of the positional value there. But again, I'm not going to knock for positional value. I've been consistent in that, and I'm not going to knock the player for the way that the Ravens might handle the selection. Now, Loop is somebody that I think from a kicker perspective is fine. He's someone that has an NFL-ready leg. He was 6 for 9 last year from 50 plus. His career high 62, career long 62 against Houston. I think Loop is somebody that has the leg. I just think that with Tucker, the one key aspect that, you know, you could rely on for all those years before last was the pressure. Is a rookie going to come in the Super Bowl? Let's say the Ravens make it, and there's that high pressure moment. Is he going to be ready for that moment? Now, Tyler Loop, he could certainly be that guy. I'm not trying to discount him on day one, but there's just a different type of pressure, and I want to see that in action. Now, he also punted for Arizona in 2020. He made 83.8% of his field goal attempts in 4 seasons. And his last year, 18 of 23 and 23 of 25 extra points. But again, Baltimore likes those huge leg players, the ones that can go from 50 plus. So again, I think that as a kicker, he's a fine prospect. I had him a little higher on my board than other people did. I know people were looking at, Fitzgerald and all those guys, but it's a C for me again. A C for me does not dictate a bad pick. It just kind of dictates, okay, I was expecting this. I was saying on my show forever here on Locked On Ravens that, they're probably going to take a kicker, so this doesn't shock me in the slightest. Next up, LeJontay Wester, wide receiver from Colorado at 203. He was a guy who transferred to Colorado after 4 years at Florida Atlantic. The Ravens do not need a small receiver again. That is what he is. He's a slot receiver. He's 5'11". He's on the very small side, and he is not very big. He's 163. But the reason that I'm actually giving this pick a B is because I think that he's Baltimore's next returner. That, to me, is where I think the value is in this pick. 2023, Florida Atlantic. He had 278 yards on 14 returns, which was 19.9 yards per punt return and 1 touchdown. Then at Colorado, he had 9 returns for 108 yards, which ended up netting 12 yards per return and a touchdown there. I think it's a fine pick. Again, Baltimore, they are a team that has really been looking for that returner ever since Jacoby Jones left Baltimore, and rest in peace to Jacoby Jones. They've needed that guy. They've had a season here of good returns, half a season there, but they need to find a consistent player. He is shifty. He is speedy. He's hard to tackle, and he's a Florida Raven now too. So I think that he fits into what Baltimore wants there. I'm giving that one a B. Next up, Aeneas Peebles, A+. I love this pick. I was pounding the table from the first pick at A3 at 129 for Baltimore to take this guy. He is incredible as a pass rusher. He's not going to have the flashy stats that other people in this class had at his position, but he had a 90-plus pass rush grade on PFF for 2 straight seasons. He's a beast. He brings that dog mentality. He wants to win. He's a competitor. He's undersized, so I think that that's probably where teams shied away, but I don't knock for that. I go off talent. Peebles has it. He absolutely has it. So this was an A+ pick for me. I loved it. 212, Robert Longerbeam, B+ for me, the cornerback. I think he fell a little further than anticipated. I thought Baltimore got a good value here. He's someone that I think can play around on Baltimore's defense here. He was a 3-year starter at Rutgers, and he has ball skills. I mean, Baltimore is prioritizing corners with ball skills, which I like. The speed is above average. It's not great, but it's not terrible. He can't really match up against bigger receivers as well, so people profile him as a slot guy at the next level, which I think is fine. I like this pick. I thought it was good. Now, round 7, Garrett Dellinger out of LSU, the guard, was a 4-year starter who was left guard. I give this one a D. I don't really like it personally. I mean, he was a really big part of Baltimore's group there, but I just feel like for what the Ravens needed at this pick, I didn't really love it. Again, that's not on the player, but I think they should have traded this pick away, and he's someone that I'm not even sure is going to make the roster. So coming up in the final part of the show, we will dive into Baltimore's full draft grade, as well as where the roster currently stands, an undrafted free agency update, and a lot more coming up here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel's giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Denver Nuggets, I'm a Denver Nuggets guy. They pulled out this Nuggets Clippers series is unreal. Nuggets pulled it out in game 4. The series is 2-2 going back to Denver for game 5. So if you want to get on the Nuggets train on FanDuel, you can do that. If you believe in the Clippers to bounce back in game 5, FanDuel has options for you there as well. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. Going through draft grades for Baltimore, we went through each player individually. Now we're going to get into Baltimore's team grade. Really appreciate everybody for being here on this Sunday. We had a great 3 days of the draft, and we're, of course, going to have plenty more draft coverage coming your way in terms of Baltimore's draft class, the news with it going on. There's so much still to dive into, so really appreciate all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and somewhere in the middle, if you're in between an everydayer and a first-time listener, really appreciate you as well. 5 days a week plus more here of Daily Ravens coverage. So also tell a friend and tell a family member. If you have a friend or a family member that wants Ravens coverage, that maybe is interested in the Ravens perspective on things, be sure to send them over here our way on Locked On Ravens. Let's get into the team grade for Baltimore and some of the things I thought they did well and thought that they did not do well. And again, I tried to separate the individual player grades from the team grade as best as I could, but in both aspects, sometimes team grade does bleed into player grades, and sometimes player grades do bleed into team grades. So I just want to make that clear. Let's go back to the trade. I mentioned that earlier in the show. I thought Baltimore did a very poor job in the middle rounds of navigating through, particularly the 3rd and the 4th round. Let's say 3rd through 5. I'll go 3 through 5. In the 3rd round, I thought that they had an opportunity to take Wyatt Malone out of West Virginia. He would have been an instant starter day 1. You would feel much better about him as your depth. And again, it's not about Emory Jones. Like, Emory Jones, I thought, was a fine pick at 91. The issue is that they had an option to trade up, which they could have done last year too when there was a run on guards. Dominic Puny was available. He went to San Francisco. 11 picks is too many picks. I docked the Ravens for taking 11 guys as well. It's too many. 1 or 2 are going to get cut. It's just inevitable. To me, that is a waste of an asset. And it's tough because I think that just with where the Ravens are right now, sure, it's fine to have a swing tackle. That's great. But I think that you could have probably gotten away with, having Wyatt Malone be your starting guard if you traded up for him. And then I'd be fine with Carson Vincent being your swing tackle if you really wanted it to be that guy who was more of a developmental piece. So I thought that they managed that poorly and maybe thought that a guy was going to fall to them, and it didn't happen. I also think that in the 4th round, the Teddy Buchanan pick, again, was fine. The player was fine, but there were a couple of defensive linemen on the board I thought that maybe they should have taken instead. They had Joshua Farmer on the board, Cam Jackson as well, and both those guys didn't go when they were on the board again at 136. So it's like, okay, they took Buchanan at 129. They can take one of those guys at 136 and it'll be fine. Instead, they traded back with Tennessee. The trade back value was awful. It was awful. They moved back from 136 to 141, and then they moved up from 183 to 178. So they moved back 5 spots in a more valuable round and up 5 spots in a less valuable round. They lost that trade, and it cost them the opportunity to take both Joshua Farmer and Cam Jackson, because guess what? In the next 5 picks, both of those guys went, and they went with, still, the fact they went with Carson Vincent is not about the player. It's just that there were options for you. Aeneas Peebles kind of saved Baltimore. Mike Green and Aeneas Peebles kind of saved this draft for the Ravens, in my opinion. But you do also have to factor in the value of Mike Green at 59, the value of Aeneas Peebles at 210, and even Malachi Starks at 27. I think that those 3 picks alone make this draft incredible. And, the rest of it, like, yes, there were some disappointing picks in here. Like, again, I do not believe they should have taken 11 guys. I think that Garrett Dellinger gets cut, or if he doesn't get cut, it's going to be Nick Samick who's going to get cut. I don't think Rashod Ali makes the roster anymore. I think Jalen Davis is done because the Ravens took 2 corners, which is fine. But 11 picks was too many picks. Eric DeCosta said it would be hard for 11 picks to make the roster outright at the pre-draft press conference. And whether that was part of his liar's luncheon stuff or whatever, he is correct. 11 draft picks are not going to make this roster unless they make other cuts elsewhere that maybe you don't want them to make. So I don't know how this is going to work out, but I do give Baltimore a B+, A- for this draft. It was not a perfect draft by any means, right? Because then you can also look to the 5th round with that trade back and how that happened. I thought the other trade back that they made was fine with the Jets moving back from, 176 to 186. They got a 2026 5th round pick for one of their or for a 2026 6th round pick. So they swapped around in the future for the Jets to move up 10 spots and Baltimore to move back 10 spots. I thought that was a good trade back. So 1 blunder on the trade backs, 1 blunder on the guard position again. And, Dellinger wasn't my favorite pick. And other than that, I thought the picks were fine. But again, you have an incredible pick in Mike Green, incredible pick in Malachi Starks, incredible pick in Aeneas Peebles, and guys that I liked, like an Emory Jones, Teddy Buchanan, LeJounte Wester, those guys that make sense. So B+ to A-. And again, if you're watching in video form, be sure to put your grade down below. If you're listening in audio form, be sure to message me on social media. More than happy to hear your grades. I'm excited about it. Kind of weird we're not doing a mock draft for today either, which is what we usually did. Mock draft Sundays are officially over. Where Baltimore's roster stands right now, I think they added a lot of high-level contributors that can maybe start or just make an impact right away. Obviously, Malachi Starks and Mike Green are going to be day 1 starters for Baltimore, in my opinion, or maybe for Green, he'll rotate in but still have a very big role. I think that Emory Jones is possible, but I'm not really seeing it. Teddy Buchanan, special teams, a couple of these other guys here. I think that Kone, special teams, Wester, big roles a returner, Aeneas Peebles probably in that D-line rotation. So you have guys that are going to be playing for you this season, and it's not just your 1st and 2nd round picks. I also think that when you talk about other places the Ravens can add, I think defensive line is one, probably like a run-stuffing defensive lineman. That would be one. The Ravens added a couple of good undrafted free agent linebackers in Chandler Morton out of Memphis and Jay Higgins out of Iowa. But if you wanted another vet in that linebacker room, you have Roquan and Jake Hummel. Maybe you add another guy there. I could see them maybe going with another safety, like a vet safety to see, just for competition's sake. Maybe another wide receiver, like a vet if you wanted to, but I really think that they're going to keep 6 and that this is the group they have. Maybe a vet tight end to put on the practice squad, maybe another offensive lineman, but I think 1 more defensive lineman is a must. Other than that, I think Baltimore set up pretty well. Now, the undrafted free agent signings, you have Jason Jones out of Auburn. You have Ozzie Hutchinson out of Albany. You have Sam Pitts out of Minnesota Duluth. Keandre Jackson, defensive back out of Illinois State. Marcus Major Jr., running back from Minnesota. Xavier Guillory, the Arizona State wide receiver. Reed Holsky, Miami, Ohio, offensive lineman. Jacob Dobbs, James Madison, linebacker, and then a couple of others here that I think are just waiting for confirmation at the time of this recording. So again, we'll see. I'm not sure how many undrafted guys will be able to make the roster with the roster crunch Baltimore currently has, but we know Baltimore likes to find those diamonds in the rough. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow talking more Ravens rookie class, talking more Ravens football, the latest Ravens storyline. So on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.